Hello, welcome to another episode of All Elite Arcade, your weekly hangout with myself, Evil Uno, and the Chugs, our weekly podcast where we talk about video game news and the games that we are actively playing. Chugs, how's it going this week?
It's going great. I'll tell you what, more and more video game news is approaching. Time and time again. I feel like this summer is going to be a super exciting time for us gamers. I'm telling you.
Oh, I think so too.
So I'm doing well. Yeah.
We're so close to announce season. You know, E3 is no longer existing, but June is still the month when it comes to video game announcements because we go into the holiday season later in the year, and that's usually when the big games come out. So they start teasing them this month. I know this is the time that I get real excited for video games because you get like trailers are half of the fun of video games. The reveals
easily
that pre-hype of a game coming out. And this episode, we're actually going to be talking about some of the PlayStation stuff because they did a state of play this week. We will be doing that in the middle of the episode. But before we get into that, and because I know we have so many weeks of announcement coming in, I think we should talk about the games that we're actively playing. I'm going to be honest with you. We've had a very long week. You were there as well. But AEW has just spent their time in Vegas and on the West Coast. And so I was on the entire loop, which means I was gone for almost 10 days. So I didn't get a bunch of video games played. But I did, I spoke about this game a little bit last week, Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, which I explained was like essentially, it's the people that made Year Walk, and they also, I think they made Sayonara Wild Hearts, which was like a music game. They made essentially a Resident Evil mansion, but no combat, no horror. It's just 100% puzzle solving. And I'd say 8 hours in, and I don't think I'm anywhere close to completing it. It's very, very dense with puzzles in a way that, like, and this is usually this is a sure-sign way of impressing me, Evil Uno, is that if I have to keep a notepad down on like secrets or like patterns that I don't understand, but later on it might be a deal, this game has plenty of that. And so I've played about 8 hours. I'm slowly going through. It is more challenging than I thought it was going to be. And some of the some of these story elements of the game are very artistic and obtuse in a way that like they're I wouldn't say unapproachable, but it's kind of hard to contextualize all these puzzles. And so a lot of the puzzles are out of left field, and it has taken me some time to at least figure out how to address them. But the little bit that I have gone through in the 8 hours has been incredible. If you're into puzzle games, this one has a wide variety of puzzles in it. A lot of it is like contextual stuff to the rooms you're in, or reading through notes, and the notes will give you indications on another note, and that note will give you an indication on a painting you might have walked by, and then you have to decipher that painting. It's kind of those type of puzzles. You have to kind of have a keen eye on all the elements you interact with, and thankfully there's a database of every interaction you have, and so it'll keep, you know, if you get to a lock and for example you can't get through that lock because you don't have a specific key, it will put that on your list of things to do, and will also
nice.
Yes, which honestly is a very good way because it's a big mansion and sometimes I have no idea where to go next. So that list of objectives is very, very useful for me. And they also, any note, so for example, you read a lot of, you see posters, you see notes. There's actually games within this video game with like back covers and booklets. All of those have scans in them and have text saved to them, so you can always, rather than go through the mansion and go to a specific part of it, you can go back to your database and go see everything that you've interacted with, which helps a ton. With a little bit of cohesion with the notepad that I write down everything in. It's been good. It's been very challenging though. It's we were going to talk about this last week. We made a challenge to each other. I challenged you to play The Witness, one of the best puzzle games I think of all time. This is an enormous amount of puzzles, but it's also one of those ones that I know that if you're not super into puzzle solving, this will definitely not be in your wheelhouse. It is So dense. It's crazy how dense it is. But I love puzzles. I love that little bit of anger you get for like not being capable of solving a thing. And then, you know, much like, and we're going to bring it back at all times. So much like when you beat a boss in Elden Ring, when you finally achieve that puzzle and you feel smart, it is one of the greatest feelings when it comes to video games. And so I'm dredging through that. And other than that, I've played nothing at all, with one exclusion. We've talked about it several times, but there's a new season of Fortnite that just came out called Fortnite Wrecked. They dropped a new map. There's Fallout character skins in this one. Magneto's part of the battle pass, but the big large difference in this one, and I haven't played a whole lot, so I'm not I don't have a proper opinion on how this compares to the previous season, but they have a vehicular combat now. So now your certain vehicles that you jump into will have guns mounted onto them. So a lot of like the late game stuff in this game, if you get into the top 10, if you get in the top 10 ranks, once you're down from the 100, a lot of it is just being in cars and just maneuvering around other cars and trying to shoot each other in that small circle. So it's been very fun for the little bit I've played. I'm sure I will talk about it more next week. Now that I am home, I'm probably going to put a ton more hours with my pals. But otherwise, it's been a pretty light video game week for me, Evil Uno. What about you, Chugs? What have you been playing?
Well, Uno, just a couple of side notes based on what you just said. First of all, every time you talk about puzzles in any capacity where you're figuring it out, I know we've discussed this before, but again, I just want to give a big shout out to Tunic. That game, when you slowly discover the in-game manual, like the old school video game manual where it explains what you can do, I have to give another shout out to that game. I absolutely love that game.
Yes.
And in addition to that, I know me and Evil Uno discussed last week. We recommended each other some games to play. My recommendation was Ender Lilies. Evil Uno's recommendation to me was The Witness. We will get to that this week. It's been a crazy week for the both of us. But I'm very confident that next time we get together for this podcast, we'll be able to give each other at least a minimal review. Of each other's games for sure. But
I actually downloaded Elder Lilies today in hopes that this weekend I'll tackle it for a good 5-6 hour chunk.
Right, I have The Witness downloaded, ready to go. But as far as the games that I'm playing this week, in addition to, again, the consistent games that I'm playing on stream, there's two new games that I jumped into on stream this week. One of those being Paper Mario: The 1,000-Year Door.
Yes. Which
was the new remaster that was released on the Nintendo Switch. Mm-hmm. And I am a huge fan of the original Paper Mario. It's easily one of my top 5 favorite Nintendo 64 games of all time. And so many people have regarded Paper Mario: The 1,000-Year Door as the greatest Mario RPG
I would actually
of all
agree.
time.
I would actually agree. I've played the original version. Is this your first time playing it?
My first time ever.
Ooh, exciting.
Ever. I never even opened the menu. Never even opened the game before. So playing that today, I got to stream it on twitch.tv/thechugs for about 4 hours today. And I get all the hype. Again, between the amazing characters, the music, I love the combat. It almost feels like they took the original Paper Mario and just made it better. That's kind of how it feels to me. So again, I'm still very early in the process of playing this game, but very much enjoying it. It's just a classic turn-based RPG that is an absolute blast to play. But I did jump into another game that I've been told over and over again that I need to try. And that is Another Crab's Treasure.
Oh, yes.
Which I was able to pick up on Xbox Game Pass and download that, no problem. Again, a very cute art style, a very fun-loving art style. The dialogue is great. The characters are great. It seems very fun-loving and stress-free. It's stressful. It is 1000% a Souls game, but stressful in an amazing way. Like I totally get what all the hype is in regards to this game. The combat is super fun, and also very early on, you go to this area and you realize how much of an open world area that you really do have. You have a general idea and a general direction of where you're supposed to go, but you can still kind of go off the beaten path and kind of explore. There are some enemies who I should not be fighting right now. There are some very, very difficult enemies. But the combat is super fun. It absolutely is a Souls-like, 100%. But just with such a cool and different and original atmosphere for this game. So that one, I only played about an hour and a half of this game, but my God, it's fun. So this will be a game I certainly will play start to finish.
So I've heard a lot of good things about it, especially because it came out on Game Pass. I think a lot of people kind of brushed it off because on a visual basis it looks almost childish, but I think that's the whole goal, right? Is to have these competing styles, like an extremely difficult third-person action game, but with what is a much more approachable visual aesthetic. I want to know. So, like you said, this is a very much a Soulsborne style game. Is it more Bloodborne action focused? Is it parry focused? Is this? Do you have weapon variety in this? Like, how does it go about?
So from the little bit that I've gotten to play, what's very interesting is there are multiple different weapons that you can use, but your shell is incredibly important. And there are, over 60 different shells that you can use, all with varying durability stats and things like that. So you definitely, especially as the game goes on, you want to get used to guarding with your shell, but your shell also takes damage depending on when you guard. So I'm still rolling quite a bit and things like that. So I don't know if I could compare it to whether it's more like Dark Souls or more like Bloodborne. It kind of is. I mean, it's absolutely a Soulsborne game, but it kind of is its own thing. You were constantly looking for new weapons and new shells that you can use, and that could be a soda can, it could be a seashell, it could be so many different things with again varying advantages that you can use throughout it. But it's exciting. It's a really, really cool game where automatically the second I got to the main area, the sea floor, immediately I go, oh my God, I want to look through all of this map. I want to search every single corner of this map with varying enemies and NPCs to meet. It's just it has a different feel to it, but a feel that is very exciting and a game that I want to keep playing.
I definitely, I've heard a lot of great things from friends who've been playing it too. So you saying that makes me kind of want to play it.
It's really good.
I also heard really it's on it's not short, as in like not 5 hours short, but it is on the shorter side for one of these third persons. Like we're looking at upwards of I think 12 hours, which is I think manageable for something like this, especially.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely want this. Another question quickly. Do you have weapon variety, or are you just strictly using like the claws that you have as a crab?
So there are definitely different weapons that you can use. When I started with like this rusty fork that does like a certain amount of damage, but you can absolutely use different weapons. You can also increase your stats. Like there are 4 main stat points that you can use. One of them being your HP, the other one being your defense, or AKA how much your shell, the particular shell that you use, how much that can withstand. Also your attack power, and there's another stat at the bottom that I haven't advanced far enough yet to know exactly what this does, but I don't know if it's a special move or if you can use magic. I have no idea, but there is a 4th stat that you can also improve. So there is a ton of variety in this game, ton of variety. Already within the first hour and a half, I've met so many different characters, and I've met some really tough enemies as well. So I'll be interested to see how the game advances as time goes on.
So that's available on Game Pass right now. You can get it for free if you're a Game Pass subscriber. And we have actually more Game Pass news in our news segment later on. A little tease for that. Quick question: was last week we talked about Hellblade 2? Did you put in any more time by chance?
I did. I finished chapter 2 of Hellblade 2, which again continued to rise the stakes of what this game is. It's a heavy video game. It's a really, really heavy.
The subject matter is super heavy.
Yes. But it's unbelievable. You're put into situations where you feel like God, am I doing the right thing? Am I making the right decision? But the whole way through, it makes every single decision that you make feel so heavy. So again, Hellblade 2 is another game that I'm absolutely going to continue playing. Chapter 2 is even more intense than Chapter 1. So yes, again, I cannot recommend this game enough. There are so many good video games out right now, and I'll tell you, Hellblade 2 is definitely one that you want to jump into 100%.
Oh yeah, so and we're talking about monthly subscriptions. Game Pass is always one of the best ones. I'm also a PlayStation Plus premium subscriber.
Yes, me as well.
Some nice little news. June, one of the monthly games will be AEW Fight Forever. So if you've been holding out,
let's go.
You've been holding out. This is your chance. I'm actually very excited for that. I think it's also that the more recent SpongeBob game and Streets of Rage 4, which Streets of Rage 4. Great beat 'em up game. So if you have one of those services and you have the PlayStation one, make sure in June you download AEW Fight Forever, because now's your chance to get it for free. And I'm also really excited to see, not to talk about our game at length, but I'm excited to see once people get their hands on it for free if the multiplayer battle royale mode that it was developed for it will grow a little bit, because like a lot of multiplayer games live and die by the free service, like PlayStation Plus. For example, like a lot of oh my god, what's that party game? The Fall Guys. If it wasn't for the fact that it was released free initially on PlayStation Plus, I don't think it would have the weight that it has now in the world of those battle royale style games. So I'm very excited to see what AEW Fight Forever is going to do with the support of PlayStation Plus. Plus, if you're not even on PlayStation Plus but you have Game Pass, we've already talked at length about a couple games you could go play. I'm still adamant that the monthly Game Pass is of great value, and we're going to a further tease for later on. There is some big games coming out for it as well. Xbox always drops their big stuff day one, and they do day one on indies too. So very excited. We actually have some big video game news coming right up after this. And we're back. Hey, we've been talking and teasing about the big state of play that just dropped by Sony PlayStation. I'm a big Sony guy, and so I'm always excited for these state of plays. And I'm actually really excited to talk about a couple of these titles because we actually unknowingly teased it over the last few episodes. So I'm going to go and run through every single one that has been dropped. We'll talk a little bit about each game, and then I will tell you at least there's 2 or 3 that I can guarantee you we'll jump into a lot because we're both excited for sure. So State of Play just dropped this week. We may actually, I think that is the only piece of direct content from one of the publishers this week. Next week we've got Summer Game Fest. We've got a ton of independent ones. We've got Devolver Digital. We'll be most likely talking about that next week. So be on
a lot of big stuff.
Oh, a lot of big stuff. We're gonna get the whole episode might be just us talking about trailers. To be seen. But next episode of All Elite Arcade, expect those. State of Play started with, and this is a game I actually don't know much about. It started with a reveal of Concord by the developer Firewalk. They came down with a visual cinematics trailer, but then they also dropped a gameplay trailer. This one is a 5v5 PvP shooter, so similar to Overwatch, one of those
I was going to say, very Overwatch-esque.
Yes, so very hero-based. I believe they say there'll be 16 heroes at launch, and it will launch this year on PS5 and PC on August 23rd. This looks... I'm not, we're going to talk about another one of these as well. I'm not huge on the hero-based ability shooter game, mostly because I'm not a competitive gamer, and a lot of these being 5v5 PvP shooters are the whole basis of the game is to be competitive. But this one looks, pretty colorful. It seems to have like a humor undertone. Kind of curious to see what people are gonna, or once they get their hands on it in August, what they're gonna think about it.
Well, I will say they did an excellent job of making you invested in the characters. I think the trailer that they showed, it showed everyone being likable in different ways. Uno, I'm with you as well. I'm not a big PvP shooter gamer, but it still looks like a blast. You know, I remember, God, I put hours and hours into the original Overwatch, and this one looks really smooth. The gameplay looks fun. And again, the characters seem interesting. So I'm excited to see what they do. And clearly there are more than only 5 characters. They're, like you had mentioned, 16 different heroes in this game. And that's just at launch. So I am excited to see what they do with it. It does look fun. It looks really fun.
They look like they're going to be supporting it in the future. So that's 16 initially, but there will be more. And also, like, it kind of, especially when they did the cinematic, it kind of gave me a Guardians of the Galaxy feel.
Oh my God, me too.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So I actually live reacted to the Sony State of Play on my Twitch channel, and all of us were saying the same thing. It definitely has and that's not a bad thing. Definitely has a Guardians of the Galaxy feel to it. And Guardians of the Galaxy is amazing. So,
it feels like a bunch of misfits hanging out, and I'm very curious to see that. That's not the only PvP player that was dropped. There was actually a pretty big one. This one was teased, I think, and also may have been leaked not too long ago. But Marvel Rivals by developer NetEase had an announced trailer. It's essentially another Overwatch PvP style game. This one being a 6v6, except it involves Marvel superheroes. So the back catalog of all Marvel heroes seems to be up for grabs. And
it's third person.
And third person. That is true. It is slightly different. This was not a first person one. This one's third person. They actually showed gameplay. It seems pretty varied from character to character. They didn't say the length of how many characters is be there, but there was an exclusive Spider-Man to the PlayStation console. This will probably release on the 2 major consoles and probably PC as well. And right now it's in closed alpha with no release date yet, but kind of cool to see Marvel expand into other regions. They did a lot of third-person story-based games with the Guardians of the Galaxy. They made that Avengers hero third-person game. So interested to see what this one's going to be like. Once again,
me too.
Not big on PvP stuff, but I do like Marvel. I like superheroes. I might give this a shot for sure.
Yes.
Other than PvP games, another thing that we were heavy on in this one was the Souls-like games. There was quite a few that were showcased, so including Where Winds Meet, which was by developer Everstone Studio. It seems to be an open-world action-adventure RPG that has a lot of Sekiro vibes, at least from what I could see in the trailer. It seems to be a lot of, like, human-on-human combat rather than human-on-monster combat, like a lot of the Souls games are. This one seems to be way more about, like, parrying and blocking sword attacks and getting into that sliver of time-based stuff. And it seems to be inspired by, like, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. There's like a section where they do a lot of floaty combat. That one, unfortunately, no release date yet, but it looked really cool. It was very pretty, and character design wise, it looked interesting, and it probably will be one of the fun ones to play for sure.
And I will say, because I agree with everything that you said, but from the trailer that we saw, that immediately to me was, oh, I'm gonna play that.
Oh yeah,
like right away. Yeah, right away. So fun. Looks so fun.
Yeah, when there's 2 of these trailers. As soon as I saw them, I was like, Chugs is gonna play this for sure. This was one of them. And then we had actually another similar. I wouldn't say similar, but at least style-wise, it seems to be a third-person action RPG again. This one was called Ballad of Antara, which is developed by Infold Games and Tipworks. They dropped a trailer where the main character has, I don't know how to explain this other than has a child on his back, and maybe that child turns into like a wolf or something.
Right.
This seems to be a Souls-like based on East Asian mythology, an action RPG with a launch date of 2025. But this one was way more Souls-like with large monsters. The monster design that they showcased throughout that was pretty cool. Excited to see what that one's gonna be like as well.
I agree. Me as well. Very similar to how I felt about the previous game. This is absolutely a game that right away I was like, okay, I'm at least going to give this a try, because both of these games looked like they'd be an absolute blast to play.
Yeah,
an absolute blast.
Other than that, we also dropped a couple PSVR 2 games, which is surprising because I think this week they announced that they would stop developing PSVR 2 stuff.
Right.
Or at least they seem to be reducing the amount that they'll be like developing. But they dropped 2 of them, including, and they're pretty big titles. One was Alien Rogue Incursion, which is the Alien series now in VR helmets. I played the Isolation game. I don't know if you ever played that one. Which
I'm too scared.
Oh my god,
scared.
It was terrifying. Effing terrifying. This seems to be another one of those.
I do want to say, seriously, Alien Isolation seemed like one of the most horrifying games ever, and I love virtual reality. I absolutely love it. I can only play it in small spurts, but when it comes to horror VR, Uno, I have no shame in saying this. I'm too scared, man.
I get it.
I'm too scared.
I get it.
It's too real. It's too real. It's right in your face. And I guarantee you, if you love horror games, I guarantee you this new Alien game is going to be absolutely horrifying.
Oh, if it's anything,
I know it.
Yeah, if it's anything like Isolation, I played that one not on VR, and it teases you the appearance of the alien for maybe 3 hours before you see it, and I was so anxious the entirety of the time that like any
build up, man.
Yeah, any sound would terrify me. I don't do well with horror games either. I could watch a horror movie, I could watch a horror game get played, but the second I have control, something in my body has like fight or flight sensation. It tells me like, you can't do this. Step away. Dude, this is bad for you.
I'm so glad you said that, because I really do feel that way. There are certain horror games that I love to play, like for example the Resident Evil franchise. I can play that no problem. But when it comes to games where like you have limited inventory or limited weapons and you're kind of running for your life, like whether that be Outlast, Emily Wants to Play, Alien Isolation, anything like that, I'm like, I'd rather watch someone play it instead of playing it myself. Yeah. I am on the same page with you 100%.
My heart can't handle it. Well, anyways, if you're interested, Alien Rogue Incursion, which seems to be
awesome.
It looks awesome. Looks very similar to Alien Isolation, but in VR. That launches this year on PSVR 2.
Yes.
The other thing they showed, this one's really interesting. This is by Skydance, called Behemoth, and it looks like... So it has like combat, a lot of like cool sword combat. They showed you catching an arrow, putting it into your bow, switching it, throwing it, shooting that bow and arrow to another enemy, blocking arrows with your sword, slashing people in half. But what seems to be very different from this one, and this was by I believe the developers of Walking Dead, Saint and Sinners.
Yes, you're right.
I remember that was the big reveal. Is that you combat a lot of characters of your size, but then you combat giants. And in a lot of ways, it kind of looks like, what is the Shadow of Colossus, but in VR, which looks very interesting. It looks similar to kind of Blade and Sorcery as well. And it's launching in autumn this year. I don't have a PSVR 2, but this is one of the first titles where I was like, oh, this looks unique enough. I might want to jump into this.
Yeah, when I start seeing these like action RPG VR games that are coming out, with exactly what you said, you made the comment about like an arrow is coming towards you and you can block it either with a shield or your sword. Like that seems so next level fun. And I have not played a game like that yet in VR. Same as you, Uno. I do not have a PSVR 2, but some of these games make me go, you know what? I really feel like I need to get a PlayStation VR 2.
It's also going to be a rare item soon. So
yes, exactly. So this looks super exciting, super interesting. Definitely a game I would want to consider checking out for sure.
And so that's what they showed for PSVR 2. I actually saved a lot of these big ones for last, because I know we're going to be talking pretty heavily about them. So one of the first ones they showed, they actually teased this last year, and this kind of plays into a third-person action as well. But they showed off Capcom's Monster Hunter Wilds with a big gameplay trailer. The previous game, Monster Hunter World, sold over 20 million units, and I believe the DLC Iceborne was 25 million units. This is launching on PlayStation this year, and there's a lot of like desert areas out of this one, at least in this one trailer that they showed on gameplay. I have never touched a Monster Hunter game before, but I'm kind of fascinated with this one. I considered jumping into Hunter Worlds before because a lot of people told me that was the easiest one to learn and to access for a North American video game player. This one seems like it will be slightly easier even as a point of entry. And yeah, it looks cool. I am excited. I will likely give it a shot this year.
I'm not kidding. Monster Hunter, the entire series, is a series that I have been meaning to jump into for way too long. I played, I think, the first 45 minutes to an hour of Monster Hunter World, and I totally understood why it was so interesting and so intriguing. But I still have not fully taken the plunge on Monster Hunter. But it seems like a game franchise that I would just absolutely love. I think I own multiple Monster Hunter games, but have not actually completed any of them or played like a minimal amount, because for the longest time Monster Hunter was so intimidating to me. But Uno, going off of what you said, this does seem like a game where you could just jump right into it and get into it no problem, because Monster Hunter seems like right up my alley, and so many people I know who love what we love about video games. Monster Hunter Wild seems like an incredible game. So this might be, Uno, me and you. I think this might be the one where we jump into it. Yeah.
So I know, since you mentioned playing Worlds, a lot of what made me not want to jump into it right away is that you couldn't get into a multiplayer game until like an hour and a half, 2 hours into the video game, because you needed to learn the systems and stuff. I'm hoping this one has a quicker point of entry, because like what I'm fascinated with it would be the thought of like hanging out with my pals and having to team up to take down big monsters, right? So hopefully,
I love a good PvE. For example, me and you sitting back playing Monster Hunter Wilds, just jumping into it, figuring it out together. That would be so fun to me.
Yeah, exactly.
So fun.
So hopefully that comes out next year, and hopefully we will both be jumping into it as well.
Yes.
That another big sequel of sorts. This one plays to my heart. I don't know if you're a big fan of this series, but Dynasty Warriors Origins was announced. That's by the developer of Megaforce. I played through countless amount of Dynasty Warrior games. It's essentially a third-person action game, except you face waves and waves of armies on a large map. The last Dynasty Warrior game was Dynasty Warrior 9, which I believe was in 2018. So that was in the PS4.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, PS4 library. They have made other licensed games. You might have played one of them, the Hyrule Warriors one, where you played as Zelda characters, and it was like a third-person action game. They made that. They made Fire Emblem Warriors. They made One Piece Pirate Warriors. I don't know much about One Piece, but that's one of the series they did. They're coming back to the series. This one seems to be... I don't know if this one is a multiplayer one or if it is only single player. They haven't disclosed that information. But I do love the series enough to want to jump in. It's a lot of dumb fun. There is a story for sure. It's about war. It's about politics. It's about like geopolitical stuff. But at its very base, it's about just smashing hundreds of characters with one sword swipe. And that launches in 2025. I'm personally very excited for it. I personally hope it has multiplayer. Once again, another game that I did enjoy playing with friends. You know, you get 2 or 3 people on a map. It's a lot more fun to try and tear down the masses and masses of armies that you have to take down. But even if it is a single player focused one, I'm still pretty excited for it.
I hope so too, because looking at the trailer, again, my jaw dropped. Like, it's so cool watching Dynasty Warriors gameplay ever. And this particular trailer, I was like, oh my God, this looks like so much fun. And Uno, I'm going to be totally transparent. All Elite Arcade audience, I've actually never played a Dynasty Warriors game, ever. But it's very fun to watch. So maybe this will be the one. Maybe this will be the one for me, because it does look awesome.
Yeah, this one looks like a lot of fun. I'd recommend them. They're good palate cleansers. You know, they're not they're not intense and difficult or challenging, but they are. Well, they can be for sure. But they're
are they super story driven?
So
or it's more just action.
There is some story elements, because you know there's multitude of characters, and so they have to like contextualize it. But in the end, it comes down to like one faction's war against another faction's war.
Gotcha.
But this one seems to maybe go back to this might be like a good starting point, because it seems to be about the origins of the large standing war.
I love that.
So it could be a good one for us to jump into for sure.
Okay.
We've got 2 games left, and these are the 2 we saved for last. This was actually not on the State of Play. This was actually separate of it. We'll go back to the State of Play afterwards, because I think I would like to talk about our final piece after. But they had a Silent Hill transmission showcase right after the State of Play, where they showed Silent Hill 2 Remake, 13 full minutes of gameplay. They also announced it's launching on PC and PS5 this October, which is actually pretty damn soon. And they also showed some clips of a Return to Silent Hill movie that'll be coming out later on. I know, because we've talked about it last week, you're playing Silent Hill right now.
I am currently going through the entire Silent Hill franchise on stream. And again, I do have quite a bit of experience with Silent Hill, but I've never beaten a Silent Hill game start to finish. And I know specifically that Silent Hill 2 is regarded as one of, if not the greatest, psychological survival horror games of all time. So I am so excited to play the original when I get the chance to play through that entire game. But my goodness, from everything I've seen so far, this Silent Hill 2 remake looks spectacular. You know, with like, and the only thing I keep comparing it to is I just remember in my brain that when they decided they were going to remake, when Capcom decided they were going to remake Resident Evil 2, I thought, no way, you know, is it going to be even near as good as the original RE2? And Resident Evil 2 Remake is my favorite Resident Evil game of all time.
Mine too.
Man,
so good.
It really is. It's unbelievable. They somehow took that original game and made it even better. And I know that the devs in this scenario know how special Silent Hill 2 is to so many different people. And from what I've seen so far, they have put so much love, care, and attention into this game. To say I'm excited for the Silent Hill 2 remake would be an absolute understatement. I will absolutely be streaming this game. I'll be playing this game. I'll probably try to beat it multiple times. But again, the story approach within this game and their approach at horror is done in such a different way. And I think this remake looks just absolutely incredible. I cannot wait. I cannot explain how excited I am for the Silent Hill 2 remake. It looks freaking awesome. It looks so good.
The fall looks really good for our video game releases, especially with Silent Hill 2. Like that's like a favorite game for a lot of people. I know Chuck Taylor's favorite.
A ton of people.
Chuck Taylor's favorite game of all time is Silent Hill 2. I have only maybe put in 4 hours into this game. I've never beaten it, but I started playing the Silent Hill 2 when they announced the remake. So I just stopped playing. I told myself like, oh, in this case, I'm gonna try to get the best experience possible. So.
Uno, I'm in the same situation where I'm like torn. Because I feel like I'm towards the end of the original Silent Hill. So like traditionally, or the way that my streams are supposed to go, it was like, oh, you'll play, you know, OG Silent Hill 2, which I do think I'd have enough time to be able to finish it and then also play the remake. But there's a part of me that's like, do I just wait and not even play the original? Because I don't know.
From what they showed in the trailer and the gameplay, it does seem to be I bet you there'll be some modifications, but it does seem to be structured the same way. The dialogue seems to be the same as well. I know a lot of people are like, oh, the dialogue feels stilted in this. Well, if you played the original, you know that like that's kind of how the people talked in it too. So like it might be the version of playing it for sure.
Interestingly enough, I am curious to see kind of how it unfolds because I have extensively watched a bunch of content on Silent Hill 2, and I do feel like in the remake they objectively, quote unquote, improved the dialogue where it feels more natural and more real. But again, there were so many arguments based on the way the story went in the original Silent Hill 2 that says there's a reason that the voice acting and the dialogue was done a certain way. So I'm also very curious to see when I compare the original to this remake, see the differences that they make. Because, again, a lot of people feel like there was a specific design and a specific way that they did everything in the original Silent Hill 2 that made that game so horrifying in its own way, which is all I'm going to say, just in case, because I don't want to. I know it's an old game, but they're going to remake it, and I certainly hope they keep the general idea of the original Silent Hill 2 within this remake, which I'm sure they will. But again, it is a incredibly powerful video game. It's one of those games where when you finish it, people talk about it forever. Again, it's a lot of people's favorite video game of all time. It's horrifying and beautiful all at the same time. It really is.
Well, very excited for October. That seems to be when it'll be releasing. Early October, too, I believe. It is October
8th, I think.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm right.
Yeah.
So very excited for that one. And then the final piece. This one I'm real excited for because we actually talked about this a few times on stream. They announced a brand new single-player Astrobot game that is based on the free launch title for the PS5, which I believe was called Astro's Playroom.
Yes.
Completely free. Came in installed on your console. And it was essentially a demo showcasing the history of PlayStation, but also showcasing its new haptic feedback on a controller. By far the best use of haptic feedback on the controller. It is, but
no doubt.
There is no other game that feels as incredible on the PlayStation controller as this one. Well, now they've just announced a brand new game. It's a 3D platformer. They say it has over 80 levels spread across 6 galaxies. Over 15 different abilities that take advantage of the DualSense controller, so that maybe it'll. I know in the original, it played. It used the rumble feature. It used the haptic feedback. It used the motion controller. So it seems to use all of those components. Over 70 new types of enemies. They in this trailer, in the original demo, they did a ton of tribute stuff. A lot of the collectibles is going through the history of PlayStation from device to device to device to device, including demo discs and so on. This looks like it has more of that. They showcased the PS5 a whole lot. They showcased the controllers a whole lot. They showcased all kinds of characters from the lineage of PlayStation games, including cameos from they had a God of War cameo in this one, in this trailer. They had a Journey cameo in this one. And overall, I am super excited for Japan Studio and Team Asobi's new Astrobot game. And we don't have to wait very long because this seems to be the big Sony release this year because it comes out on September 6th. Which,
man, Uno, I said this before. Me and you have talked about this off of the podcast, privately, and now we're going to talk about it on the podcast. But Astro's Playroom was one of the best launch titles for a console that you could possibly ask for. Seriously, like, because generally speaking, I mean this. Like, normally when I turn on my Xbox or my PlayStation or my Nintendo Switch, I actually turn the rumble off, whether it's from saving battery or just not being distracted by the rumble and things like that. But when I first launched my PlayStation 5 and I got to play Astro's Playroom, the haptic feedback was so insane on that game that I went, oh, this is next level.
Oh, yeah.
This is not just rumble. This is a different level of like innovation and like really bringing you into the game that you're playing. So the fact that they are finally making a sequel to Astro's Playroom and calling it Astro Bot, which again, it seems like very much like you said, they're going to pay tribute to PlayStation. I love stuff like that. I love when you respect and bring back all the really cool characters and really cool moments within a video game console's history. But again, also the way that they're going to use that haptic feedback within this controller, knowing how incredible Astro's Playroom was, I can only imagine what Astrobot is going to be like. I will be a day one player on Astrobot, and it's so close. September 6th. It's so close.
It's only a few months away. It's only a few months away, which is crazy. Like usually they won't tease a big launch like this so close to June,
right?
And so I'm very excited. We talked about the haptic feedback. It's kind of a weird thing that we can't really explain properly, and you can't also on a visual basis when you do trailers. There's no way of explaining how cool it is to play it with a PlayStation controller, because Playroom had stuff that I never felt like Rumble was that important of a feature until that video game.
Me too.
Because you would walk on sand and I could actually feel the texture of sand in my hands. You would walk on glass and you would hear the sound of glass from your controller, but you would also, I don't even know how they do this. The feel of the Rumble made me feel like I was stepping on glass, or I was stepping on cement, or I was stepping on sand. Somehow they figured out that point of return on the feel of your hands to take full advantage of its environment. And like they seem to really have focused this new game on the controller as well. It opens with a shot of Astrobot and it goes right into that controller expanding. So no one else has done haptic feedback as well. A lot of people did the trigger support and and a lot of resistance,
which is cool.
That's cool. Oh yeah, I love the idea of like when you shoot a gun, you get that resistance from the trigger. Yeah. This did it on a completely different level that I've not seen.
Completely different level.
PlayStation's been around now for a few years. What's it been? It's been 3-4 years? No, oh my God, it's more than that now.
2020. So
4 years.
This November will be 4 years.
Yeah, crazy. And no one else has done it like they have. So very excited to see what they will do. Can they bring new innovation to the controller as well?
I know.
I don't, and we won't know until our hands are on it, because I remember when everyone played it. I still think if I were to make a top 5 PlayStation 5 games, I think Astro's Playroom would still make it.
That's fair.
Yeah, it's an incredible game. If you haven't played it, it's free. Go out of your way and go play it now. It's very short too. Super easy. Ton of collections.
Yes, and Uno, based off what you're saying, you are so right. Like, this is not a game where if you watch someone play it, you're not going to get the same experience. Mm-hmm. This, for real, is a game that you have to play yourself to, like, really understand why it's so special. Because exactly what you said, like, every terrain that you walk through, everything that you do, it really feels like you're there, but it's all through the DualSense controller. Mm-hmm. It's the most wild thing. I've never experienced anything like it. And every time I play an Astro game, there is no chance that I am not going to have the haptic feedback on. There's no way.
Oh yeah, you would be doing a huge disservice to yourself if you turn that off, because it is. It's hard to express in video, like I said, but it is the selling point, I think, to this game, is the use of the controller by far. We're both very excited for that September release, but that's not all the news we have this week. We'll be back right after this. We've got some news tidbits from across all platforms. And it starts with Xbox Game Pass. We teased it earlier today. There has been a big Xbox Game Pass news. It would seem that Call of Duty Black Ops 6, the next iteration of the Call of Duty franchise, will come out day one on Xbox Game Pass, which kind of insane, because historically, Call of Duty is one of the largest launch games every year. There's
Easily.
Easily. I remember it used to be a death note if your video game came out the same week as it. We talked about Titanfall before, how much we like Titanfall. The fact that it came out within a week of Call of Duty and Battlefield, it ended up murdering that game. It ended up, the sales would reduce. So it is kind of an impressive strategy from Xbox to make this a day one Xbox Game Pass. I wonder if there will be a lot of retainership for Xbox Game Pass, because I feel like a lot of people play video games, but there's a lot of and I don't mean this with no disrespect, I feel like Call of Duty is more casually played. A lot of people will play 100%. Call of Duty and play a sports game, for example, but will not delve into a God of War, will not delve into a Hellblade 2. So I'm wondering if doing this will actually help the staying power of Game Pass, or will this be a flop? It's kind of hard to tell too, because how much money is invested by Xbox in getting such a large title for Game Pass?
Yeah, it's a very interesting move, because going off of what you had said, and again, there is zero wrong with this, but we all know people who either play exactly what you said, Uno. They either play Call of Duty and sports games, or they play a bunch of other things. There are some people I know who only play Call of Duty, which is amazing. There are some people I know who only play Madden or NBA 2K or FIFA, which again is amazing. The more people play video games, the better, in my opinion. So to have a monster of a title like Black Ops 6 day one on Game Pass, to me that's a win for Game Pass.
I think so too.
I really do think you were going to have either more people retaining Game Pass or more people signing up for Game Pass. I mean this, of a move you could make if you're Xbox, to go, hey, by the way, Call of Duty Black Ops 6, it's day one on Game Pass. I mean, what an intriguing offer that is. And that's not including the hundreds of other games that you get. So to me, it's an incredible move. It's a really, really good move. And again, because we know that Black Ops 6 is going to do well. It really, really will. So
yeah, historically, Call of Duty never does bad.
Never.
It may have dipped down. That there was I think Modern Warfare 4 was probably the peak of where it was, but every year it is still one of the best selling games that comes out. And having it on Game Pass also opens it up to, I think, a whole other audience that wouldn't necessarily buy the game, because I stopped playing after Modern Warfare 3 because once I skipped a couple iterations, jumping back into the multiplayer, I would just get demolished. It was just it felt like the point of entry was impossible. Now I feel like there's going to be a larger pool of new players, which I think will actually help that game live on for a while. And I think Microsoft making this gamble also means that they're gambling on Game Pass. They still believe Game Pass is going to be their big money maker. And I hope it pays off, because we've talked about it before, but I think Game Pass is a great use of your money. Especially if you don't buy a lot of video games, that's a perfect way to get a sampler of a ton of stuff and some day one releases of some really, really large games.
Well, Uno, talking personally, I know we talked about this before off the podcast, but I actually was late to the Game Pass Ultimate sign up, because for the longest time I thought, no, I want to own my games. I want to buy a game and I want to own that game. And then finally, 9 months ago, I decided, I'm like, you know what? I got to get Game Pass Ultimate. I got to give this a go. And after I did, I can't believe I didn't do it sooner. Just the access of the games that you can play. And actually, the idea, too, of being like, oh, maybe I want to try this game, but I'm not sure. And knowing I have Game Pass, I can just go on there. And again, there's hundreds of games listed. So easily you can download a new game. And I think, again, all these first-party major titles for Xbox being added to Game Pass is a brilliant move. I think more and more Xbox Game Pass is going to continue to grow. Again, this is a big one. This is arguably the biggest Game Pass day one title they've ever released. I mean, it really, if we're talking the Call of Duty franchise, to have Black Ops 6 as a day one Game Pass, that's exciting. That's exciting for Game Pass Ultimate owners.
I don't know, and this if I'm wrong, you can please correct me out there
Sure.
in the internet land. But I believe like Microsoft just recently acquired Activision, so like this is like the first of their move, because Activision has a huge library of large games, and so this is like the first move into releasing one of their big titles on Game Pass.
This is a mega hit.
Oh, yeah.
This is a mega hit to add day one. It really, really is.
So very exciting news for Game Pass. On another piece of news, it would seem Cyberpunk 2077's development has officially ended. The DLC came out. They did a ton of updates to it. We talked about it before. I think Cyberpunk 2077 is an incredible game, especially with the amount of work that they did to try and fix its initial launch. But with its official end, it would seem that the team that is working on that is now moving to Project Polaris, which is rumored to be The Witcher 4, and will finally be produced and being worked on right now, which I know you are excited for.
I'm so excited about it. I'm actually currently playing through The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, the complete edition, so the next gen update, currently on stream. For me, I mean this, and Uno, I know you've heard me say this, and I apologize to the All Elite Arcade audience. I'm sure I've said this so many times, but it's either that or Elden Ring to me, as far as top to bottom, the greatest video game ever made. And to say that I'm excited for another Witcher game or another Witcher series would be such a massive understatement. Again, I do feel like they've done an incredible job with Cyberpunk 2077. I still need to play the Phantom Liberty DLC.
Oh, it's
I still
great.
haven't had the chance. It's
very,
awesome.
Oh,
okay.
It's very good. Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard nothing but amazing things, and I loved the original Cyberpunk 2077. But so many people say, "Oh, Phantom Liberty like changes the game," which has me even more excited.
Oh yeah.
But again, The Witcher 3 is one of my favorite video games of all time, and the fact that they're focusing all their attention and all their love towards this next Witcher project, I mean, I am beyond excited. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is one of the greatest video games ever made, and I will stand by that till the day that I die. It's an amazing game.
So there was a bit of sleuthing done. Like, this is the first time in over a decade that not a single developer from CD Projekt Red is working on Cyberpunk 2077. Like, beginning of this year in February, end of February 2024, they had roughly 17 members still operating and fixing Cyberpunk 2077. Excuse me, Cyberpunk 2077. Those are now no longer working on that project. There's now over 400 people at CD Projekt Red working on the Project Polaris, which is rumored to be Witcher 4. So it's full tilt, full steam, going on ahead with their next big title. And I'm excited. They make incredible games, and I'm really excited to see what they make. It's rumored to be Witcher 4, but even if it's not, I'm excited for what Project Red does. They have not failed yet. They had a rough launch of Cyberpunk 2077, but they know how to fix a game. They've showed that they can be trusted with it. I'm very excited to see what they do next.
Me too. And also on top of that, again, I don't know this for sure, but I remember hearing, I don't know if it was to the extent of what happened with Cyberpunk, with them releasing on Series X, Xbox One, PS5, and PS4. But I know when The Witcher 3 originally came out, apparently there were quite a few problems.
Yes, initially.
And I didn't play it at launch, but that game is held in such high esteem and regarded as, again, such an excellent game, which it is. So, and again, obviously, CD Projekt Red has proved, whether it's with the Witcher series or Cyberpunk, they make great video games. So there is no question, whatever Polaris is, hopefully it's Witcher 4, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing.
And then this final piece of news, this one's also tailor-made for you. It's a good week for the Chugs. Resident Evil 0 and Code Veronica remakes are reportedly in the works at Capcom. It would seem, according to a Twitter report by Dusk Golem, they said that remakes of Resident Evil 0 and Code Veronica are currently in development. IGN has corroborated that information, saying that they are the next two Resident Evil remakes scheduled to release. 0 was initially out in 2002 as a prequel to Resident Evil. They had an HD remaster, but not a full remake. And then Code Veronica was the one that I believe was exclusive to Dreamcast in 2000.
For a while,
right? And eventually was remastered for 360 and PlayStation 3. That is true. I have not played the entirety of the Resident Evil games, and so I know I'm going to give you the floor for this.
Okay.
You being a big Resident Evil guy, how excited are you that 0 and Code Veronica are being remade?
Am over the moon about this, because, you know, for example, with these two games specifically, Resident Evil 0 and Resident Evil Code Veronica, in my opinion, don't get the love that they deserve. Resident Evil 0, for example, to me, to this day, one of the most beautiful video games I have ever played in my life. To this day, if you were to play it now, it is a gorgeous, gorgeous video game. And I love a great prequel. I really do. Because the Resident Evil story is so fascinating to me. I stand by this. The Resident Evil story is the best telling of a zombie storyline of all time. There is no, in my opinion, there is no better zombie storyline than the Resident Evil franchise.
Do you consider Last of Us a zombie one? Ooh, yeah, a little wrinkle.
That is a wrinkle.
Yes.
You know what? It kind of is, but I guess more so the way that the virus started. Like, I love the idea of this pharmaceutical company getting all this money and being like, okay, we're doing this one thing, but actually we're taking our money to like try to create these certain viruses or things to maybe make super soldiers and then sell it to the government.
Make more money.
Obviously there's a thing that goes wrong. And I don't know. I love it so much. But 0 is so interesting because, again, it covers the story of Bravo Team, which is one of the people that you meet in the original Resident Evil is Rebecca Chambers, who is a member of Bravo Team, and everyone else has pretty much been wiped out. Now, I do understand that the original Resident Evil 0 did get a decent amount of flack. Like some people weren't crazy about the idea that there were no item boxes, and you actually had to drop items on the floor, and if you wanted to get them, then you'd have to run the whole way back and pick them up instead of having it conveniently in an item box. So I am curious to see if in the Resident Evil 0 remake, if they end up instituting item boxes at all. But I think overall the story, I love Billy Cohen. I love Rebecca Chambers. I love the train. I really do. I love that game. Absolutely love it. And Resident Evil Code Veronica, I just played for the first time a couple of years ago. And I love that game so much. I really, really do. Again, like focusing more so on Claire. And I won't say anything just in case, but the other characters who are involved, it is such a wacky, off-the-wall story, but done in such a fun way. Seriously. And in my opinion, the original Resident Evil Code Veronica is the hardest of the original Resident Evil games.
Ooh.
I do. I think it's the most difficult. It's very easy to miss items, very easy to miss weapons. Some of the enemies are super difficult. But I was hoping so bad. I got so scared, actually, when they remade Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 and then went to 4. And then we got a hint of maybe they're going to remake Resident Evil 5, which is possible. But in my brain, I'm like, oh no, they're not going to remake 0, or they're not going to remake Code Veronica. They've moved past it. So this announcement has me so excited. Those two games, I feel like, don't get enough love to They're very special games, very important to the Resident Evil franchise. And I think them getting the same love and attention that RE2 Remake, RE3, RE4 Remake gets would be huge for the franchise. Resident Evil is such a special series of games.
Capcom's working on a lot of stuff too. You know, with both of these remasters coming out, they also have a Capcom team working on Monster Hunter Wilds that's coming out next year. We talked about as well, and there is a team that is actively working on a mainline Resident Evil game. They haven't announced the title, but by most people's estimations, they assume it would be Resident Evil 9. It does seem though they won't stop making remakes. What do you think is next? Because I personally I was a huge Dino Crisis guy, and I think like now is the time we can finally go back to that franchise and spruce it up so that it's not tank controls, make it more relevant to the times and stuff. What about you? Is there another Capcom game series? Is it another Resident Evil game? What other games do you think should be remade in the same form that Capcom has done Resident Evil 2?
Una, I do want to mention this, though. I do think it's incredibly impressive that in addition to making, like, new mainline Resident Evil games, like Resident Evil Village or Resident Evil 8 was incredible. So good. While they're also making remakes of classics that we all love. Like, Capcom is killing it.
Yeah, and they're not half-assing it. They actually, they could have just done HD remasters again. They didn't do that at all. New voices, new graphics, they fixed some of the stuff that wasn't implemented into those games at the times. The remakes rule. They have yet to do a bad one.
Yep, completely agree. It's so impressive. So as far as things they could remake, I mean, I do want to make sure that I say this. I completely agree with you with the idea of them remaking the original Dino Crisis.
Yep.
That would be so awesome. The OG Dino Crisis is such an amazing game. But this might sound silly because they've already remade it. But if they remade third person, the OG Resident Evil.
Yep.
Oh my God. Like in RE2 remake fashion, that would be so incredible. I love the remade OG Resident Evil on GameCube. Again, gorgeous game. Similar to Resident Evil 0. Just one of the most beautiful games. The backgrounds are great.
It looks like a painting.
It really does. And the addition of Lisa Trevor and like all these different character aspects, but at the same time, it still stays true to that original game. If they remade... I've said this before about the original Metal Gear Solid. I know this is kind of off topic, but they did remake it, the Twin Snakes. But I would love a PS5 version of Metal Gear Solid. I would also love a PS5 version of the original Resident Evil. That would be so awesome and I know they'd crush it. I know that'd be amazing.
And I know that a lot of times it's funny because in movies and such, I don't love when we revisit nostalgia and they take some of my properties that as a kid I loved and they try to make it into something new. But when it comes to video games, it's done with so much attention and care. We've seen Final Fantasy do it. They've done incredible. Shadow of the Colossus was an incredible remake. It's a very exciting time now where some of the games we see as, that we all played as kids can now be made and fleshed out for a new generation without losing any of its, its core and its essence that it came out of 30 years ago, but can be fixed for the times, better controls, better camera, better lighting, better graphics. The sound alone for these Resident Evil games is incredible. You play those with those headphones, and just the sound design is insane for these remakes. So very excited for remakes in general. I agree with you. Metal Gear Solid. I would love for that first game to be done in a maybe Unreal 5 engine or something more modern.
You imagine, especially with the announcement of Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater coming out pretty soon, which would be so cool.
What a great game.
Oh, I'm so excited. So excited. Also, random thought, and I apologize because I'm not 100% sure if Capcom made this game or not. But Parasite Eve remake.
That would rule too, actually. Yes.
That would be amazing.
I never completed that game when I was a kid, but I would definitely play that nowadays too.
Yeah, that'd be another super fun one. But like you said, I think the thing I love so much about video games is lots of times with these remakes, you can tell that people have genuine love and appreciation for the original IP, and they put their heart and soul into these games. Like, I can't believe I'm saying this again, but Resident Evil 2 Remake is my favorite Resident Evil game. It surpasses RE2. And I'm getting to a point where the Final Fantasy VII Remake series is my favorite Final Fantasy. It's surpassing the original FF7. So I love it so much, and it has so many people so excited for the future of games. It really does.
And that's a lot of other games too. Ratchet and Clank was a remake of the original series, and that series, the new series of remakes, is insane. It's incredible. It's some of the best work they've ever made. So I'm very excited for the future of remakes in general. I think there's such a vast library of games that could be remade. In fact, if you're a listener out there and you're on our youtube.com/AEW Games, or on our socials, AEW Games as well, let us know what you think should be remade next. What great video game do you think should get the treatment that Resident Evil 2 Remake got? Because there's a lot. Oh my God, there's a lot. Because I know we're not even thinking of some. There's definitely a handful of stuff that we're like, oh, of course I would love to see this. So we would love to hear from you, our listeners and viewers out there. So do follow us on social medias at AW Games across the board, except for on Instagram, it's Play AW Games. And also, you can find me, Evil Uno, on every single social media. Chugs, where can they find you?
Yes, you can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/thechugs. I play a wide variety of games on there, but I did want to take the time to, for everyone who has listened every week, if this is your first episode, thank you so much. But for everyone who's been hanging out and watching this podcast and listening to me and Evil Uno talking video games, we cannot thank you enough. Seriously.
Yes.
I don't mean to speak for him, but I know he agrees with me. This is one of our favorite things in the world to do. So everyone who's enjoyed the episodes, thank you so much. We have a lot more where this is coming from.
Yes, thank you so much for hanging out with us, be it on your podcasting of choice. It could be on Stitcher, it could be on Spotify, it could be on Apple Podcasts, wherever you do find us, or on video on youtube.com/AW Games. We appreciate you. This has been a lot of fun for myself and the Chugs, and we are very, very appreciative of you guys and girls supporting us through all of this. We will be back next week. There's more All Elite Arcade every single week, and there's a lot of video game announcements coming in the next week. So be sure you hit that follow and that subscribe button down below, because next week's going to be a fully loaded one. There's going to be a bunch of trailers releasing, and I know both me and the Chugs are very excited for it. So see you next week.